Okay, so this comes from Newsarama. We've kind of talked around this story a little bit, but this is coming from Newsarama. Jim Lee signals DC won't replace Dan Didio and addresses major DC reboot rumors. So we talked a previous episode about the whole 5G thing that we were hearing about that was kind of circulating around. You can actually go to newsarama.com and actually read this story there. I'm just going to read just briefly a little bit of it. This is by Chris Arant and George Marston. We got a picture here of Jim, who at once upon a time was actually my boss. Says DC's now sole publisher and chief creative officer Jim Lee has indicated that DC won't replace former co-publisher Dan Didio, who recently exited the company. Speaking at his personal spotlight panel during C2E2 2020, Lee told the audience, "There's continually new things going on, and I look at being sole publisher now and the team I'm working with. Much more in the trenches now than ever before." Says, "We've been with Warner Brothers for decades," Lee elaborated. "The actual strategy for DC is to put publishing at center of what we do. It's the engine of all the movies, the TV shows, the cartoons. And so it's my intent going forward as the publisher to lean into the collective years of my team," meaning the experience they have. Lee also seemingly but vaguely addressed rumors about Marvel acquiring DC Publishing, which has made their way into some internet rumor circles of late, shooting down any chance of this. To address some of the stuff that is out there, there's rumors, speculation, Lee explained. "I wouldn't put any credence into it. DC has been around for 85 years and will be around for another 85 years. I hope to be doing this panel in 85 years. Lee also spoke about the chances of DC's impending 5G initiative, that it would constitute yet another reboot, saying that it's not in the cards. "It's hard to talk about things we haven't announced. The intention is to not do a line-wide reboot," Lee clarified. Our focus in talking to editorial teams is to continue what we've done best: character-driven stories, pairing right creators and right characters, and developing characters that are inclusive and diverse. Anyhow, you can read more about that. There's a lot of different versions of this basic same story kind of circulating around, that Jim Lee at C2E2 is basically shooting down a lot of the rumors that we've heard. So you can read into that or take from that whatever you want. I still think that some of the theories I've heard that DC might just go heavy, full tilt into the licensing business, and actually license some of these characters out for other companies to publish, kind of like what Marvel's doing kind of on a soft launch side with IDW with Spider-Man. I could see that possibly coming to pass, but we'll see. I know I sent this to you, Eric. Did you have a chance to scan this article at all? What were your thoughts on it?
I didn't have a chance to actually read the article. I've been paying attention to what you've been saying and all that kind of stuff. But my initial reaction is that this sounds a little bit like Damage Control, and it sounds a little thin. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of meat to what he's saying here. It's not like he announced, well, this is our next project. This is what we're going to be doing now. You know what I mean? Or this is,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'd say the jury's still out as far as what exactly is going on. You know what I mean? And what the future of DC really is. Ronnie said that's what they do best, and I don't know exactly when he said that and what comment he was mentioning. Ronnie, if you want to clarify that, please.
I think he's referring to your comment about that. It sounds like they're doing some damage control.
Well,
which was actually a very good Marvel series, I might add. Damage Control was a very fun series published by Marvel in the 80s. I'd highly recommend that version of Damage Control.
It says, at least he believes in what he's selling, even if it smells like BS. Well, that's my question. Does he believe in what he's selling? I don't know. I don't know Jim Lee personally, or anything like that. I don't claim any insider track. I mean, Dave, you worked at DC, so even if I don't know what kind of direct involvement you had with Jim, or if at the very least you were probably within a degree of separation from him, right? So,
well, here's the funny thing about Jim. Jim was my boss. At one time, he literally was signing my checks, which was really interesting. Um, the and you would have thought I would have had a chance to really meet him. I was basically within probably about 4 or 5 feet of him on a couple of different occasions, but I still actually didn't have the chance to actually meet him. So I've never really got a sense for who Jim is beyond the persona that he's put forth in interviews and stuff. I do think that Jim is a pretty earnest guy. And if they're telling him, this is what we're doing, this is what we need you to do, I do think he believes that, and he will go after it with the same kind of tenacity and drive that he's always displayed. I look at Jim as a bit of a pioneer in the independent creator space. I mean, if it hadn't been for Jim willing to jump ship, along, of course, obviously with Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri and all the Jim Valentino and the guys that formed Image Comics, I don't know if the independent side of the comic industry would be flourishing in the way that it has. So I give Jim a lot of credo and a lot of credit for that. So I do think there's some earnestness to what he's saying. But time will tell in terms of like what DC's. Well, yeah, I got that, Ronnie. He's paid. Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, I do think there's some earnestness to probably what he's saying. There's probably a little bit of spin in there too, but that's what happens when you're in a corporation. That's just.
You also get lied to sometimes.
That's true.
Get lied to sometimes. So you can put on that good face. You're told that everything's fine. We're going to continue with this, and then the next thing you know, they pull it out from under you. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that happens quite a bit. Very true.
They said his original comment was aimed at Jim Lee, saying that DC is the best of creating character-driven stories and pairing the right creators with the right characters. So, well, that's obviously going to be his take. I think he works for DC, so
right. I would agree with that to an extent. I'm not gonna argue with my brother too much about that. I would take some issue with some of that, just because I remember how hard that Scott and I were both lobbying to get him on Superman, and Scott would have been a tremendous Superman artist. He did some of the most powerful looking dudes in comics, and he did action like nobody's business. And the fact that Scott never had the chance to actually work on Superman in his career, and unfortunately is a huge misstep that DC didn't tap him to do that, and now unfortunately he's gone. So I'm not gonna say that they are the best at doing that. I'm saying that they do a pretty good job of that, but that's my own personal opinion. So, and we just recently, just for those who know, we actually just I think it's been 7 years since Scott's been gone. And that happened in February. So those wounds are a little raw at the moment. So I apologize if I'm waxing a little too poetic. I just was reading that comment and thinking about how much effort we put into trying to lobby the editors to get Scott on Superman. I just think that was a huge missed opportunity. So
no, I mean that's something you were really involved with. So you should be. I mean, I think people want to hear some of those stories too. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, absolutely. And I can understand that being a raw subject and all that kind of stuff, but it's also great insight. It's also a great insight to how these companies really work.
Yeah.
Ronnie mentions, he's truly missed. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.